Yeah, if you had a chance to have a look at the tape, and if you have, did it look any better than it looked on Sunday?
I think it confirmed my comments afterwards that there was plenty of effort from us. There was obviously dominance with the ball, and ultimately we hurt ourselves, and that was our biggest frustration and disappointment, regardless of a couple of bouncing balls that we didn't deal with that led to a score in the first instance and a couple of high impact decisions. We had enough in that game to win it, and we know that.
Can we expect to see Keelan Giles back in the selection mix this weekend, perhaps?
He's actually had a chest infection, so that's what ruled him out, and he's still recovering from that, but he's looking promising at the moment.
Is he likely to feature this weekend?
He's still recovering from a chest infection.
Right.
So.
Well, what did you think of the two wings? Luke had a hot and cold Christmas, didn't he? He was good. He took that chance against the Scarlets and perhaps, tested a little bit in defence last weekend.
Defence in terms of the ball being kicked over the top of his head, I thought his position was good, to be fair. If you look at that one, he gathers the ball, he shapes off nicely, he's working in combination with his 15. It's probably forced an offload, and maybe should have just taken his medicine. He was trying not to be dragged into touch and concede a line out to the opposition. In that circumstance, maybe it was just better to take our pain. Having said that, he's had wonderful moments for us, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'd say there's a high level of success in him being able to nail that skill. It wasn't to be on the day, but for me, he's playing really well. I think it was more symptomatic of our overall performance in that we didn't deal well with that ball that was in behind us at times.
This weekend, how important is it, that you get a win to round off the festive period?
I think it's important that we get back to doing what we do well and we don't beat ourselves. I don't think you can, the shape of the ball, you get another bounce like that at the weekend, then it can go for you and go against you. We had a little bit of fortune against the Scarlets. We didn't have that fortune at the weekend. But we have addressed the situation by looking, at what we can do better. And as a group, the boys have responded brilliantly this morning. We obviously have another session this afternoon. We'll confirm the team thereafter.
Are you where you want to be in terms of creating chances?
With 14 line breaks, I'm not going to be one of those coaches that lists stats, because ultimately the stat that matters is the scoreboard. We didn't nail that. We'll do that in camp. We know we need to be more clinical. We need to execute better. And we maybe need to respect the type of rugby that we're playing early on in the game.
Talking of respect, Cardiff Blues have won both their Christmas derby games so far. What did you make of their performance down at the Scarlets?
Yeah, as I said, post-game I thought it was very impressive. It was tough conditions. I thought they set themselves up well and played really well. Without the ball, we're content without the ball, but obviously they showed their attacking threats as well, and how dangerous they can be. They get possession of the ball in the right areas of the field. I know the Scarlets had a few injuries, more injuries than when we had played them, but it was a fine performance by them.
Just how important are the two games now against Cardiff Blues in deciding who goes top three, who qualifies for Europe, that sort of thing? I
think every game from here on in, particularly those within your conference when it's head-to-heads, are important. If you look at our conference in particular, the points we have at the moment would actually place us second in Conference A, behind Leinster. So it is very, very tight at the top, and a defeat like the weekend for us, it takes you off the ladder where you'd been sitting high. A win one way or another. Our responsibility is to perform well at the weekend, come out of that game, hopefully with a W, and then put pressure on others around us. With Munster playing Connacht this weekend, there's a head-to-head there, so you can narrow the gap. But I'm sure Cardiff Blues are saying the same.
What sort of aspects of Cardiff Blues play will you need to stop? What are their danger threats?
I think you look at their midfield, you look at their control at 10. You look at their combination of their back row and their ability off the ball to slow your breakdown. So it's well pitted that they turn teams over. They have a high rate of turnover on opposition ball, and equally they have a high success rate from scrum attack. So we're aware of what we need to be working on, and as I say, without giving our plan away, we're addressing that in camp.
You have to throw everything at this game, obviously. Do you then plan to ring the changes in Europe again, or do you go with strongest available again against Worcester?
I think that this week is our primary focus in the time of the season that it is, and such a short turnaround from Sunday. However, we're looking at the number of minutes that players have played to best prepare them for those who go on to international camp, but equally we're looking at performance. So selection is always based on performance on the training field and at the weekend, and as a result of that, come Monday we'll look at the best options for the following weekend.
Any further absentees from the Dragons game? Any fresh injuries to report?
No, we came through it. Like, obviously you get your usual bumps and bruises, and there's a little bit of recovery required for certain individuals, maybe right up until Friday. So there are a couple of question marks. However, we're in a pretty good state of play.
And in terms of players coming back, anyone fit again?
Not at the moment, no. We've got a few guys who aren't too far away. It's good to see Dan Baker out running on the field again. It'd be tremendous to get him up and running. Obviously Sam Parry's come back from an injury. He is currently up and running, so he'll come into the selection mix over the next week or so.
What about Bradley Davis?
Yeah, he's back as well. He's running. He won't be available until the latter part of January, February. We're doing what's right by him. He's an older athlete. He'll love me for saying that, but he's a good athlete. And we're just managing him to make sure he comes back and he's given the best opportunity to achieve his individual goals. But he's a brilliant club man as well.
In terms of Bradley, Nicky Smith, Dan Lydiot, obviously you want them for Ospreys duties, but you always want to put players forward for Wales as well. Disappointing for guys like that who won't really have any chance to show what they can do before then. Yeah,
it is, but I look at that roster over there for a club that hasn't existed for so long, and the international honours on it. That inspires me as a coach, and I wanted more so to inspire the rest of our player groups to drive the standards, to know that when you come here that you're playing with good players who get selected for Wales, playing with world-class players, and we believe we've got some young players who are on that pathway if they commit to the work ethic and the values of an Alan Wynne-Jones, a Nicky Smith, a Dan Lydiot, a Justin Tipuric, a Scott Williams, a George North.
When can we expect to see Dan Baker?
He's just started running again, so we don't want to put too much pressure on him. We're not going to be, again, we'll do what's right. I'd love to see him sooner rather than later. He's a dynamic ball carrier. And it would add value to our selection dilemmas on a weekly basis. However, within the next couple of weeks we should be in a better place to know how he's dealing with that workload. When you get back up and running, obviously there's more trauma in the knee. I'm not a medical expert, but we've got really good people working with him, S&C and medical, and Dan's really driving it now, and that's a good sign for us.
With Ollie Clarke now, how pleased were you with his display? And what does he need to do, to put himself into the Wales selection mix?
I think what Ollie is currently doing is is exactly what you need to do. There's a young gentleman who's just walked in who has shown consistency over the last decade or so, but you know, for me it's the run of games, it's the run of form. Ollie's a really good student of the game. He is young. I have to remind myself that he's 23 years of age, and you're seeing a real growth in his game in terms of his interplay. He always had those values of hard work and effort and never giving up, but now he's some softer skills along with that. He knows what he is good at, and he's really driving those elements of his game whilst working on other aspects of his game as well.
How happy were you with Gareth Thomas over the Christmas period? Because obviously a lot of people might have feared the worst in the Scarlets game, because obviously they got away front row, but seems to have really, you know, come to the fore, isn't he?
Yeah, it's all testament to him. His numbers in that Scarlets game were through the roof in terms of his effort and his contribution to the team. His ability to go the 80 minutes as well. He left nothing out on the field. He was absolutely empty afterwards, and he backed that up to a degree at the weekend. And I didn't actually realise he hadn't had that many number of starts for the Ospreys. But yeah, like, it was great. But he's part of a unit, and we as a team know that we're going to be tested this weekend. As I say, we've prepared well to date. You need that little bit of time to deal with the defeat at the weekend. You recover mentally. We go about our business with that that ambition to improve, and as a result of that, hopefully we get the performance at the weekend.
You were happy with the depth of your squad, because obviously you've got your big internationals, but Cardiff as an example, a lot of players seem to be coming forward and playing well. Ollie Clarke maybe doesn't get applauded outside the squad, but you perhaps have a bit more depth than maybe people give you credit for.
Yeah, and probably through some selections this year, people are starting to realise, actually I can do this, I can perform, I belong here, and you get that confidence. You realise, you know what it's about. You realise what it takes, what you need to work on. I think it's important that, regardless of what 23 are representing the Ospreys at the weekend, that everyone's being coached and everyone's being challenged and supported, so that they're becoming better rugby players as well as people. And we've a group of men here who fundamentally that's what they do, and we've said all along we're a club that are progressing. We're starting to see shoots of that progression. Obviously it was a setback for us at the weekend, but that doesn't negate from the number of wins that we have on the roster so far this season. Sometimes it's too easy to lose sight of what you've done well and be unbalanced. For us it's important that we're consistent in our approach and consistent how we work together, not work with, but work together as individuals for the Ospreys to get the best out of ourselves.
With Leslie Klim, when is he likely to sort of make his debut?
I've no idea.
Well,
Leslie arrived to us with obviously an injury that he picked up whilst he was playing for Namibia. So probably looked to deal with that without surgical intervention. It did require surgery in the end. As a result of that, he's more likely to be post this break, so what I would classify as block 3 of the season. There's a chance we might see him February, March.
Great, thank you.
How far down the road are you with the sort of off the field stuff for next season, Alan? Obviously there's a bit of talk about financial restructuring. Are you where you usually are in terms of getting players nailed down for contracts for the following season? Yeah,
that process has begun. A number of contracts have been offered and verbally agreed. It's quite difficult to dot all the I's and cross the T's at this time of the season, but that's where we are. It's the nature of the banding process that Wales is going through. And by the back end of January, we would like to be in a pretty good position in terms of retentions, recruitment, and invariably release.
Has the banding issue made any changes from your point of view?
It's delayed the process a degree, and obviously it's, you know, we're all people. It's caused the player group some angst, which is understandable, particularly those who are coming out of contract, because there's been that period of waiting until, you know, we're now in January, and with certain players we're only now sitting down to discuss future recruitment with.